take the chance and roll the dice.
What happened to your guild?
I have a whole lot of opinions, which I can share with you to fill time. That's fine. But, I mean, what it comes down to is Classic is a 16-year-old game at this point. And people have more or less figured out how to optimize things to blast through it as quickly as possible, which my feeling is not really true to how you're supposed to be playing it. Like, I understand you want to do your best and you want to perform well, but this is like pulling out everything and the kitchen sink so that you can ignore mechanics.
Well, hasn't Classic... It's been out long enough that it's effectively mathematically solved. So.
Yeah. So, you know, the way that people used to play it was they sort of, you know, strolled up to a boss and poked at it a bit, and they said, okay, that's enough for this week, and they went around and they did all the bosses that came before it to collect more gear so that eventually they would be able to face it and get it down. So what they're doing now is they're just collecting every single buff that they can, even some that are not intended for their faction, and then blasting it down long before they should be able to.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah, so the leaders of my guild were feeling extremely frustrated because Nax has 15 bosses and we only gotten 10 down. Now, back in the day, maybe 1% of the entire population ever got into Nax, so 10 bosses is actually not that bad.
Yeah. 10 bosses is quite a lot.
Yeah, so what's left is basically the ones that take a decent amount of learning and mechanics. And the leadership was just so upset. They're like, oh my god, we're falling behind and everyone's gonna poach our players, blah blah blah.
And you're like, but,
It's like, no, actually, we're doing fine. We're doing quite well, considering that we never actually ever had a full raid. You know, it's a 40-man raid, and we could never get more than 35 people in there. But we were still doing the content, and we were getting better and faster about it. But the leadership decided to have a big argument with itself and give up.
You know, but if you give up, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, well, the guy who took over Guildmaster from the one who left, like, our last raid night, he was in Discord. I could see him playing Among Us while we were at Nax. Excuse me? Could you at least be polite enough to put yourself on invisible? Just saying.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, so it wasn't a big blow up as far as the guild saw. The leadership it was, but everybody else, their last night was a nice time.
Well, that's good at least.
So, you know, that was the whole thing, and it's like, okay. And I think that, you know, basically everyone's been playing for a year. It's kind of what everybody did in quarantine. I think everybody sort of got their fill. So of 35 people, as far as I'm aware, maybe 4 or 5 of them are actually still playing a week later. Everyone else has said, maybe this was enough for me. So I found a new guild. And from their logs, I thought they were only a little bit ahead of me in progression, but it turns out they had Kel'Thuzad on farm.
Oh.
So I stroll in there, and it turns out what farm means is you drop about 800 gold on a raid per person to get them flasks and food and every sort of resistance potion possible, and mana runes and mana potions, which are on separate cooldowns, so you can use both.
Oh, they're doing the exact thing that you.
Yeah. And yeah, so I did a night Nax with them, and a lot of these buffs only last like 2 hours, and after they ran out, I got to see how they played without them. And I'm like, these people are actually objectively not any better players than we were. They're just using in-game currency to blast their way through it, which means they had the time to get the currency. Not necessarily that they were better at doing it.
Oh, yeah, that's... So they were doing pay-to-win strats.
Yeah, and it kind of blew. So yeah, we did an attempt on a boss where about half the raid still had those buffs, and got it down to 6%. And we're like, oh, that's so close. Well, let's just go again. Well, now nobody has the buffs, because it's the end of the night. They've all fallen off and died. They get it to 24%. So it's obvious that they've been using this to skip the mechanics and not learning them, which to me is... I mean, it's fine. Technically, you get it done, but it doesn't seem to be in the spirit of the game to do it that way.
Yeah, that's a problem with games being that long. Like, I saw that problem, like, when they announced Classic. I was like, okay, this is going to result in faster burnout because everyone has already... everyone has basically already played through this whole game and therefore knows the optimal way to do anything. Like, the guides have been out forever. Because part of the fun, at least for, I don't know for you, but for me, was discovering how to do things, because like Wowhead and like Wowhead and the various other mods like that didn't exist yet, or they were in their, at the very least, in their infancy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they've had 15 years to practice it on the private servers, and what I saw from looking at the official forums is some of these people know the game mechanics better than the developers, because whatever version of the game that they're running right now is not theirs. It's an image that they got from somebody else, because the original game didn't exist anymore. You know, they'd basically overwritten it and the files weren't there, so they have picked this up from somebody else.
Yeah, I think it like Elysium or one of the other private servers.
I think Elysium is too new for it to have been them. I think it was the other one. What was it, Nostralis?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's their game client that they're running, and
which
people
is
have
close, but had been.
People have been able to figure out which version of the game it is that they're running, because there's bugs in it that didn't appear in the original, but did appear on the private servers. But they were such specific bugs that I never would have noticed.
If you do this at this location with this item...
Yeah, it's weird shit like that, because the people who set up those servers, of course, didn't have the actual code and had to make reasonable guesses of how it was supposed to be put together.
Yeah, there was like a lot of jerry-rigging to get things to work.
Yeah, so some of that spaghetti code has made it into the game as it exists right now. But, I don't know, whatever. So I feel kind of bummed, because I got my Kel'Thuzad kill, and that's technically what I said I was there for. Hooray. But at the same time, it's like, the guild could have done this if they'd just been patient and done it the old-fashioned way. And not insisted that it had to be done within the first couple of weeks. Because Burning Crusade hasn't even been announced yet. Everyone's assuming that it's going to be next month. But that's an assumption, and even though a lot of the Burning Crusade code still exists, so there's less for them to put back together, there's still going to be a testing period during which you can still work on Nax. But
yeah.
Whatever.
What the heck is this stag station? It keeps like, oh, it's over here, but every time... Ugh. But, yeah. I mean, and wasn't like... And Nax was all about execution for all of its stuff. It was like...
It was probably, I would say, the second raid where you started coming across things where individually people had to know what they were doing. Because before that, you could kind of get away with like 5 or 10 people who knew their jobs and everybody else kind of poking at it.
Yeah, it was basically the tank, 2 healers, and then you needed like 2 good DPS, and everything else from there it just kind of had. Well, yeah, that was the first
20
raid that
minutes
had.
long, but
Yeah, that was the first raid that had enrage timers.
I think technically some of the ones in AQ do, but they are so long that it's almost impossible to see them. Like, I think Twin Emps is 15 minutes.
Yeah, but those were less enrage timers and more...
As a mercy killing.
Yeah, you got, like, insta-wiped. It was, like... Oh, here's another one of those really big bugs.
I like his flowers. That was
Do
my
not
super
like
good
these jumpy
commentary of the
spider
day.
things. You know, your super relevant commentary.
Yeah. But yeah, I got my kill, and I'll probably stick with the guild I'm with now for a little bit anyway, because it'd be nice to pick up some of the tier 3 gear. It's pretty.
But did you get your Staff of Atiash?
Well, no, and the guild got 12 out of the 40 splinters before it disbanded. Which is frustrating.
Yeah, well, were you the one that was going to be getting it, or were you...
Absolutely not, it was my husband. Yeah.
Ooh, hello, what's this? No, I want in there. That looks amazing.
No, that's for cool people only.
Oh, man. Alright, I'll have to find the other way into there. Oh, that's not fair.
Congrats, literally everything still hates you. But yeah, now a lot of the community is saying, well, Nax is over, even though it's been out for a couple of weeks. When's Burning Crusade? And it's like, please God, don't let Burning Crusade be the same way.
I mean, weren't people, like, the people that were clamoring for Classic, like, the really hardcore wanting Classic, they were just like, yeah, well, we can clear content too fast and blah, blah, blah in retail.
I
So
mean,
now they're...
yeah, that was part of it, where people were saying, oh, it took months and months for people to kill Cthulhu and Kel'Thuzad. I think I recall the first Cthulhu kill being kind of questionable because they pulled some funny tactics to make some of his abilities not relevant.
Yeah, I seem to remember that as well.
He's got
it
a
was-
phase where, like, you go down into his stomach and you attack tentacles down there to make him take damage.
Wasn't it... It was like they had a warlock die purposely inside and then use his soul stone to resurrect, like...
Oh, that was Yogg Saron.
Okay.
'Cause I know what you're talking about, and that was what they did for the first Zero Light Yogg Saron kill, and it was hilarious. I think they decided that kill wasn't acceptable. Valid. But yeah, it was something goofy, like they basically had whoever who was still in his stomach stay in there so that it aggroed all of the ads and everybody else could just kill the boss.
Like I'll never die. I lose my head in the starry skies. Can't chain you down. I feel so